Marleen Hustead is the author of Public Display, I'm sorry. I've tried to read that title again.
Truth is out.
Marleen Hustead is a 2009 graduate of Rosemont's MFA program and is teaching the Magic Realism class here this semester. She is currently at work on a novel set in both Spain, where she spent last year, and the Philadelphia area, where she has lived most of her life. The selection she'll read tonight is from that novel draft. Marleen.
Well, thank you, Carla, and thank you, Chelsea, and everyone else who got me to come out here in the rain, because this is a great opportunity, and it's been really nice to hear everyone read. This is the work that I am still editing, so there may be some errors in there, because I have been eternally paralyzed between first and third person, and present and past tense, and it's an ongoing struggle. But actually, no. Not going to read it. Forgot the quotation. Alright, I'm not really going to give you guys too much background. I don't think it's necessary. Just that the novel is in sort of disjointed chapters and just jumps around in time, so it doesn't matter what order I read these 4 short pieces in. The day Saul chose to hang from an oak tree was sunny, with a light fall breeze that would have ruffled his hair as he crossed the field where General von Steuben trained Washington's troops to march. The leaves were going yellow by then. By the time I made my pilgrimage there the week after the funeral, the hills were aflame. And this is the problem with metaphor. It becomes our reality. The trees were not on fire. Their brilliant orbs never singed a crisp blue sky. Their leaves were dying, and it just so happens the leaves die in a very pretty way. We might as well have said that Saul knit himself to the tree, that he retethered himself at last to the earth that bore him, and so gave himself to be reabsorbed. He did not. He jumped off a small folding stool, his last purchase, and, failing to break his neck, strangled slowly with a perfect view of the golden hills. I don't know what he was thinking. It makes me angry, if anything, and yet as I stand here looking out over the tired November grass, I understand. With the coming of winter, the light drains from our bodies and perpetual twilight presses in. The first wine of the evening comes earlier, to chase out the darkness that comes earlier too. I go and sit under the oak tree. Had he done that too? At that final moment, already free, had he just sat there on the grass with nothing before him but the quiet field and the beautiful stark essentialness of death? Watch the thousands of emails and bills, those crushing obligations of time, watch the wind rip them away, toss them into the sky to be forgotten. The beauty of paper, when everything was on paper, was that it could be thrown away. Now it's here forever. The obligations crowd you, clamor for your attention for websites and social media platforms, and emails demand to be answered. Digital calendars tick on forever, recording the meaningless things you have to do. It's enough to make one want to disappear into the Amazon in a canoe with an outboard and supplies for a couple of months, tell the Digiverse to go fuck off and send its notifications in a bottle up the river. If there's anything so damn important it couldn't merit a phone call. But that wasn't why Saul killed himself. It had to be something more worthy. Saul wasn't a guy who tolerated bullshit, and he wouldn't have ended his existence over a bullshit thing like stress. The last time I talked to him, was it a month ago? 5 weeks? He sounded the same as ever, as Saul-like as ever. I stand and begin to walk out over the field toward the Grand Parade, it's called. Here, General von Steuben trained the rebel boys to shoot, to march together, to fire their muskets at the British boys together, to die together. There's something impressive in its flat vacancy. Treeless, in this land of trees, it has the ghostliness of places that were once full of people. The Grand Parade itself is a ghost of a forest. There are no survivors of that war. The visitor's center at the entrance to the park packages it pretty well. 225 years distance have a way of wrapping things up, of making it all make sense. 80 years ago, soldiers fought and died for our freedom. Even though we weren't here yet, we weren't even eggs in our grandmother's womb somewhere in Europe or Africa or Latin America or Asia. We were just series of codes on our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents' chromosomes, genes that would get lucky and make it onto the live scene, get expressed into a love for dancing and second toes longer than first ones, and thick dark brows and crooked lower teeth, and a laugh that makes people turn their heads in a restaurant, and a propensity for wine sipping and debating politics and dark ruminations late into the night. This war was different, we can say now. It was fought for freedom. 87 or something years ago, some 17-year-old peasant kid marched out from this place head high to bleed out alone on a smoking battlefield. And who can say for sure that in his final moments he believed in any freedom other than the freedom to live? The sky above the Grand Parade is the color of a chalky old bullet. I take a picture with my phone. Someday I'll organize these photos into neat files labeled with every month of my life so I can look through them, say, this is what it felt to be here on this day. And what it feels like to be here on this day is nothing, is the color of sky, the color of a faded gravestone, is almost worse than the nausea, the panic of the day I found out, when his sister-in-law called me, worse than the vertigo of the funeral. Worse because there's no feeling to ride, only empty land and silence and the slow walk back to the road under a slab of marble sky. Part 2, The Boy Who Couldn't Fly. When Saul was little, his mother used to tell him a story about a boy who had magical powers. The boy changed every time. The story changed every time. One night, the boy could soar over mountaintops faster than the speed of sound. The next night, he could make anyone agree with him. And the next night, he had enough strength to tie the schoolyard flagpole into a knot or lift a truck. This would have been in the 60s. Saul wasn't sure whether his mother knew he was gay back then, when he came home from the first grade with bloodied knees, but she knew he was different. The story I liked best was the make-believe boy's power to summon the talents of any of his known ancestors at will. The great-uncle, the mathematician. The great-great-grandfather, the wrestler, known in villages all around. The great-great-aunt who could grow vegetables in the barest of dirt. The great-great-great-grandmother who had an herb to cure nearly everything. Saul didn't think much of this particular power at the time, and certainly none of it would have been as useful to the faggy little Jew boy getting beat up on the playground as the ability to pick up a school bus and throw it at a bully. The most amazing ability any of his ancestors had that he knew of was an aunt on the father's side who had been very good at ping pong. Saul didn't even know his maternal grandfather, who had died in a work camp in what was now the Czech Republic, and his maternal grandmother certainly didn't have any special powers, or she wouldn't have had to hide with Saul's 9-year-old mother in somebody's barn in the mountains near Campania when Germany invaded Italy in 1943. And if his mother had had any special powers, she would have brought Saul's father back from wherever he was. He left when Saul was 8. Saul remembered it. His father was in the bedroom packing when Saul came out and stood in the door. His father was facing a big chip bureau with a mirror behind it, pulling out socks and shirts and stuffing them into a bag. He saw Saul in the mirror. Saul didn't say anything. His father didn't say anything. In a parallel universe, in a movie of the week, a child had a conversation with his father, and his father was lying in that cheerful, heartbreaking way. "Where are you going, Daddy?" His father would clear his throat. "I'll be back before you know it, son." In the universe Saul lived in, his father stood there with a broken drawer hanging at an angle out of the bureau, his lower lip parted slightly, as if to say something that they couldn't say, his expression deep shame, their eyes locked in a mirror, Saul clinging to the doorframe. And Saul knew. There would be no more shouting. There would be no more harsh words through the thin walls at night when boys were supposed to be sleeping. In the reflection of his father's eyes, he saw shame. His father hated himself. Finally, Saul stood up straight and turned and walked out to the garage and rode off on his bike. When he got back, it was dark, and his father was gone. Pretty short. Jeannie was at Saul's funeral, of course. An accident. Jeannie was at Saul's funeral, of course. She was the only person not careful to show the proper level of grief. I didn't see her when she walked into the synagogue because I wasn't in the line. Alex said she was in the bathroom. I walked in and heard her sobbing in a stall. "Hey, it's me. You want me to go away?" It sounds like she's winding down. She snorts and blows her nose. "No, I'm coming out now." Her dark brown hair is plastered to the sides of her face, and her eyes are all red, the long lashes stuck together, and all I can think is how heartbreakingly beautiful she is. But her look is pure fury. Her voice shakes. "Don't you dare tell me you're sorry, too." "I won't. I'm fucking furious." Jeannie clenches her fists and blows out, yeah. The restroom door swings open and a plump middle-aged woman walks in. It's always like that. A funeral is no place for grieving. Sal's plot is near a sycamore. After they lower the coffin in and we throw our shovelfuls of dirt on top, a lot of people are still there. They're going to lunch nearby, but Alex motions to Jeannie to go. She leans on the tree's mottled white and green bark, scowling. He turns around to look after her and starts to open his mouth like he's going to tell her to hurry up or something, but I just stare and he turns around and walks towards his car. We watch the people in black file off for us in silence for a minute, and then Jeannie turns her scowl on me. Why'd he do it? I catch my breath. She's supposed to think it was an accident. Everyone has been really careful about this. When the adults in her life could agree on nothing else, we all agreed on the utmost importance of maintaining this fabrication. And how could I have thought she wouldn't see through it? I don't know what to say now, but I can't tell her any more lies. I don't know, Jeannie. I meet her gaze. When I'm standing under the sycamore alone, watching the long-legged way she strides off my way, through the fallen leaves with her head up, my brain settles on a certainty at last. I've got to find out. We all told her it was an accident, and like everything, ultimately, it was. It's just before 9 a.m. at the dawn of a new millennium. This is a nonsense phrase, and Saul knows it. The earth follows no clock set by man. The sun is still new in the sky through the glass of a Brooklyn apartment. If you were to look out, you'd see the bridge shimmering over the East River. You'd see the lower Manhattan skyline in the financial district. You'd see their trade towers, their nose-wrinkling utilitarian rectangles gleam. And then you'd see something else, in the left of your field of vision. A dark object moving slowly across. A fly, it would look like. A plane is off course, you'd think next. That's what everyone else, it seemed, would keep thinking for the next 10 minutes or 10 years or so. You wouldn't have time to process what you were seeing then, only to see. The dark object would disappear in the sea of buildings, and you'd wait for it to emerge, but it wouldn't. A dark puff of smoke. When your brain caught up to your eyesight, you turn on the TV at the foot of the bed. There's been a terrible accident, you'd think, and in a way, you'd be right. This last part, what really happened. What really happened the day Sal's father left was not a lock of eye contact in a dresser mirror and an unsatisfactory answer to the question, "Where are you going, Daddy?" Sal wasn't really left with a look of shame burning in his father's eyes as he skipped out on his little family, abandoning his son to face alone an outcasting. His mind fashioned that ending over time, a palimpsest of films and a novel about a deadbeat dad transposed on his actual life. He imagined it, even at one point could barely distinguish it from the actual event because what happened was far worse, so bad it couldn't stand naked in his memory. Sal's father just left. One day when Sal got home from school, he was just gone, and he never came back. Sal never heard from him again. When Sal asked his mother where he'd gone, she just pulled at her hair and cried. She was a deaf and dumb oracle. Nothing she said made sense in the language of mortals. He never came back. He never came back. He never came back.